My sister Thea had always been obsessed with climbing the social ladder. When she realized she bore a striking resemblance to the wife of a billionaire tycoon, she saw it as her golden ticket. Plan was simple: stage a fatal car accident and eliminate the woman. I managed to stop her the first time, but that only sealed my own fate. On the way home, she poisoned me without a second thought. As I faded, she leaned in close. "You're just bitter you could never land a man like Leo Voss. You ruined my shot, so I'm ending yours." When I woke up, I was back on the morning of the planned hit. This time, I let her walk straight into the trap. Marneir. The sickening crunch of metal echoed through the empty street. Leah burst from cover, sprinting toward the crumpled figure on the asphalt. "Forget the car," she screamed. "Someone call an ambulance." Her makeup was flawless, her dress pristine. She dropped to her knees and started performing CPR without hesitation, pressing her lips to the stranger's without flinching. Blood seeped into her white dress, a visual she knew would make her look like a hero. The ambulance arrived, and the reporters swarmed behind it. Thea spun toward the cameras. "Are you serious? Someone is dying and all you care about is a headline? Have some decency." She turned back to the paramedics. "Please, you have to save her. She's so young, so beautiful. It would be such a tragedy to lose her." One of the medics, visibly moved by her passion, asked gently, "Do you know her family?" Miss Thea shook her head, the picture of a humble good Samaritan. "I'm a complete stranger, but I'll go with her. I can cover the hospital bills." Impressed by her generosity, the medic nodded and helped her into the ambulance. As she climbed aboard, Thea palmed the victim's phone, sliding it into her pocket. Like a natural reflex, I stayed in the shadows, watching the ambulance disappear. About 30 minutes later, a black luxury sedan pulled up. I recognized the man stepping out. Leo Voss's personal assistant, Reed. He surveyed the scene and spoke briefly to the police. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message. "Theo, you're all over the news. What exactly did you do?" Her reply was instant. My sister had clearly binged too many trashy romance novels, convinced that billionaires were all brainless and easily manipulated. All it took was one throwaway line from Leo Voss. "You remind me of my wife when she was younger." And she was already planning her wedding. In my previous life, I tried to talk sense into her to protect her from herself. It cost me everything. This time, I was staying out of the blast radius. I was about to head home when my phone buzzed again. The hospital blood bank at Houston Methodist Hospital reached out. A patient needed a rare blood type, and my file showed I was a match. Thea and I shared the same rare type. I went without hesitation. I never expected the patient would be the very woman Thea had just tried to kill. After donating, I sat in the recovery room to rest. Thea walked in. She froze the second she spotted me. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp, guarded. "I got a call," I said, leaning back. "Someone needed blood." "What about you just happened to be at the scene of an accident?" She eyed me suspiciously. "Coincidence? I was passing by, right?" I said, letting it drop. I closed my eyes, pretending to be exhausted. But Thea couldn't resist the urge to gloat. "Luna," she said, her voice dripping with smugness. "Do you even know who that woman is? She's Leo Voss's wife. And Leo told me I look exactly like her younger self. Once she's gone, I'll be the new Mrs. Voss." Before, I would have tried to snap her back to reality. This time I played along.
Wow.
"That's huge. So when you're loaded, think you could hook me up with a job at Voss Corp?" She scoffed, visibly pleased. "Mom and Dad always said you were born to be a worker bee. Meanwhile, I'm about to inherit a kingdom, and all you can think about is a paycheck." Before I could respond, Leo Voss's voice echoed down the hallway. Theo shot to her feet. Like a spring had been released.
"Stay out of sight," she hissed at me.
"And don't even think about sabotaging this." She was terrified I might steal his attention. She didn't have to worry. The last thing I wanted was to be anywhere near the fallout. The blood donation had drained me, so I dozed off in the chair. When I woke, the hallway was silent. The elevator was taking forever, so I took the stairs. As I pushed open the stairwell door, I heard voices. Leo Voss and his assistant. "Mr. Voss, we tracked your wife's phone. The last ping was here at the hospital, but the signal's gone now." I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall. Leo's voice was cold as steel. "Keep it quiet. No police yet. Serafina would never wander into a neighborhood like that. Something's off. And that girl, Thea, she's too convenient. Start with her." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice dropped to a deadly whisper and read, "If I find out anyone harmed Serafina, I'll make sure their entire bloodline pays."
A chill ran down my spine.
The rumors were true. Before Leo Voss became a CEO, he'd been a notorious street fighter with a criminal record. I slipped out of the building and headed home. When I walked in, my parents were laughing with Thea in the living room. Mom was fawning over her, praising her sacrifice for donating blood. You have to spend money to make money, Thea said breathlessly. Paying her bills keeps me close to Leo. Dad frowned. Why did you have to donate blood anyway? You're still recovering. Thea grinned, sly as a fox. How else was I supposed to finish the job? I did my homework. Serafina Voss is dangerously allergic to mangoes. I ate 3 before I donated. She doesn't stand a chance. They launched into another fantasy about their future wealth. I stepped out of the shadows. How could you? I said, my voice trembling with manufactured shock. I grabbed Thea's arm. We can still go to the police. It's not too late. She shoved me off like I was dirt. Are you insane? My plan was flawless. No cameras, no witnesses. The car already crushed. Keep your mouth shut, and we're golden. I narrowed my eyes. Do you really think rich people are that stupid? No cameras doesn't mean no witnesses. And now you're all over the news. You're a walking suspect. Thea faltered for a moment, then puffed up. They won't suspect me. You're just bitter because you're jealous. I'm trying to save your life. I said, if you don't come clean, I'll call the police myself. Before I could finish, Dad grabbed my hair and yanked me backward. He kicked my legs out from under me and slapped me across the face, his rings cutting my skin. Your sister is trying to make this family rich, and you want to rat her out? I should have drowned you at birth. Hit her again, Mom shouted. She only learns through pain. Thea watched, arms crossed, a cruel smile on her face. Harder, Dad. Make sure she can't ruin this for us. I curled up, absorbing the blows. It was just like before, in my past life. After Thea poisoned me, I begged them for help. They locked me in my room and let me die alone. A knock on the door stopped the beating. The neighbor asking about the noise. Dad's voice shifted instantly. Just our clumsy daughter. She took a fall. He closed the door and delivered one last kick. Learned your lesson. This time I played the part perfectly.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I won't say anything, I promise. After I begged all 3 of them for forgiveness, Mom waved me off. Stop sniffling. Get in the kitchen and make dinner. We're hungry. I did as I was told. A few minutes later, Thea's phone buzzed. She screamed, she's dead. Serafina Voss is dead. I need to get to the hospital. I have to be there for Leo. She flew out the door, my parents scrambling after her. The moment they were gone, I packed my things and left. On my way out, I ran into the neighbor again. He took one look at my bruised face and shook his head. They did it again, didn't they? He glanced at my suitcase. Good. Get out. They'll kill you if you stay. I thanked him and flagged down a cab. The radio was running a breaking news segment. Leo Voss was offering a $1 million reward for information about his wife's hit and run. The cab driver whistled. Whoever did this has a death wish. A man like Voss, find them. Eventually, I nodded silently. Over the next few days, 2 stories dominated the internet. 1. Leo Voss's desperately plea for answers. 2. My sister's heroic rescue attempt. A photo of her dressed, soaked in blood, administering CPR went viral. She was called an angel, a saint. A video surfaced, Thea weeping outside the hospital, telling a reporter I couldn't save her. I just didn't try hard enough. In the background, Leo Voss stared at her, his face unreadable. She sent the video to our family group chat. I replied with a single message. Theo exploded. She flooded the chat with screenshots of their conversations. They'd exchanged hundreds of messages. The tone was intimate, she wrote smugly. I typed back, or maybe he's just playing along to get information. Leo Voss could have anyone. Why would he want you? Theo lost it. Luna, I haven't forgotten what you tried to do. Do you want another beating? My father chimed in. Where are you hiding? We will find you. I put the phone down. I found a tiny apartment in the same rundown district where Serafina was hit. Every day I spotted Leo's assistant going door to door, asking questions, gathering footage. A few days later, Theo posted another screenshot. An invitation from Leo Voss for her and our parents to visit his private estate. Formal thank you, she tagged me. I didn't reply. Theo was so blinded by her fantasy that she missed the obvious. All news coverage of the accident had been scrubbed. The police had gone silent. Leo's assistant had stopped canvassing the neighborhood. This wasn't a dinner party. I sighed and started walking home. Black luxury sedan pulled up beside me. The door opened and Reed stepped out. Miss Luna. I presume his smile was polite, but his eyes held no warmth. Mr. Voss would like a word. The black luxury sedan smelled of expensive leather, tobacco, and something colder, a faint, metallic undertone that made the back of my neck prickle. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I simply slid into the back seat, smoothing my faded denim skirt over my knees. Reed shut the door with a quiet, heavy thud that cut off the noise of the street, leaving us in near total silence as he rounded the hood and took the driver's seat. He didn't turn around. He just checked his rear-view mirror, his gray eyes locking onto mine for a fraction of a second. "You're remarkably calm, Miss
Luna.
I'm exhausted, Mr. Reed," I said, leaning my head against the cool glass of the window. "And I know who your boss is. If he wanted me dead in an alley, he wouldn't have sent a driver." A tiny, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of Reed's mouth.
Fair
point. We drove in silence for 20 minutes, leaving the humid, neon-lit sprawl of the lower-income district behind, climbing up toward the gated hills of River Oaks. We passed through security gates heavy enough to stop a semi-truck, finally pulling up in front of a sprawling, mid-century modern estate carved out of slate, dark oak, and tinted glass. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress built by someone who expected enemies at every turn. Reed opened my door. "This way." He led me through a cavernous foyer with soaring ceilings and polished concrete
floors.
The house was dead quiet. No ambient music, no hum of appliances, just the heavy, suffocating silence of an iron cage. We stopped outside a set of double walnut doors. Reed knocked twice, then pushed them open without waiting for an answer. "She's here, boss." The study was dim, lit only by a single desk lamp and the amber glow of the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Standing by the glass was Leo Voss. In the news photos, he looked polished, a dashing corporate titan in bespoke Italian suits. Up close, in the low light, he looked lethal. He had stripped off his jacket. His dark dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up, to reveal forearms corded with muscle and crisscrossed by old, jagged white scars, souvenirs from his years in the underground fighting circuits before he bought his way into high society. His hair was slightly disheveled and dark. Circles bruised the skin beneath his sharp, obsidian eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in 4 days, fueled entirely by grief and a silent, consuming
rage.
He turned slowly, his gaze landing on me like a physical weight.
"Luna," he said.
His voice was low, gravelly, vibrating with an edge that made my pulse jump. "The invisible sister." "Mr. Voss," I replied, keeping my spine straight, refusing to look at the floor. He walked over to the heavy mahogany desk, picked up a thin glass tumbler, half filled with scotch, but didn't drink. He just leaned against the edge, measuring me. "My wife died 12 hours ago," Leo said softly. "The cause of death was officially listed as severe anaphylactic shock secondary to acute allergic reaction. The toxicology report came back 2 hours ago. Her blood was saturated with high concentrations of mango proteins." He took a step toward me, his boots clicking heavily against the floor. "Serafina had a dead stop allergy.
She
carried 2 EpiPens everywhere she went. She didn't eat fruit. She hadn't consumed mangoes in 10 years. He stopped 3 feet away from me. The warmth of his presence was intimidating. But I didn't step back. "She received 2 blood transfusions at Methodist Hospital," Leo continued, his voice dropping an octave, terrifyingly calm. "The blood bank logged 2 emergency donations from individuals with her specific, ultra-rare O-negative subvariant. The first donation was logged at 2:15 p.m. Clean, pristine blood. The second donation was logged at 3 p.m. That blood was laced with enough concentrated allergen to kill an elephant." He raised an eyebrow, his dark eyes locking onto mine with surgical precision. "The first donor was registered under your name, Luna. The second donor was your sister, Thea." I let out a slow, steady breath. "I know." Leo's eyes narrowed. "You know, your sister just murdered my wife, and you sit there and tell me you know?" If I had known what she was planning to do with the blood, I would have stopped her, I said, looking him dead in the eye.
"Just like I tried to stop her from
running your wife down in the first place." Reed, standing by the door, let out a sharp breath. Leo didn't flinch, but the glass in his hand creaked under the sudden pressure of his grip. "Explain," Leo commanded. 3 days ago, my sister noticed she looked like a younger version of Serafina. I began, my voice steady, stripped of all emotion. She became obsessed She decided that if Serafina disappeared, she could step into her
shoes.
She staged the hit and run. I caught wind of it in our old life. I tried to talk sense into her before the accident happened, but she didn't listen. I caught myself before slipping into the crazy truth of my rebirth. When the hit happened, she performed CPR on the street to turn herself into a media hero. She stole your wife's phone off her body while loading her into the ambulance. I reached into my pocket. Leo's body tensed instantly, but I pulled out my own phone, unlocked it, and handed it to him. "This is our family group chat," I said. "Read it." Leo took the phone. His thumb scrolled through the screen. His expression remained carved from stone, but I saw the vein in his temple throb as he read the messages. "Thea, she's dead. Serafina Voss is dead. I need to get to the hospital. I have
To be there for Leo.
me. How could you? We can still go to the police.
Thea, are
You insane? My plan was flawless.
keep your mouth shut.
Father, your sister is trying to make this family rich, and you want to rat her out?" Leo swiped to an audio file I had recorded on my phone, the hidden recording from the living room before I left home. He pressed play. The speaker tinny sounded, but the voices were unmistakable. The sharp crack of a hand striking face. My father's harsh roar. "I should have drowned you at birth." My mother's cold screech. "She only learns through pain."
Thea's
Sadistic laughter. Harder. "Dad, make sure she can't ruin this for us."
my
Father's voice boasting. "Just our clumsy daughter. She took a fall."
and
Then Thea's voice, clear as day. "Serafina Voss is dangerously allergic to mangoes. I ate 3 before I donated. She doesn't stand a chance." The audio finished. The room fell into a silence, so profound you could hear the blood rushing through your ears. Leo slowly lowered the phone. His face had gone completely pale, but his eyes were blazing with a dark, terrible light. The raw, violent beast that he had spent years hiding behind tailored suits and boardrooms was fully awake now. "They hit you," Leo said softly. It wasn't a question.
he looked down at my
Face, noting the faint yellowing bruise along my cheekbone that heavy concealer hadn't quite hidden. "Because you tried to stop them. They've beaten me my whole life," I said plainly. "They think I'm weak because I have a conscience. In my previously, I thought I could save them from their own greed. I was wrong. They are parasites, Mr. Voss. My sister is a monster, and my parents are her enablers." I looked up at him, my gaze unwavering. "You said on the stairwell at the hospital that if anyone harmed your wife, you'd make their entire bloodline pay. Technically, I share their bloodline, but I tried to save Serafina. My clean blood bought her an extra 2 hours. I gave you the proof you need to break.
thumb.
Now you have a choice. You can crush me along with them, or you can use me to give them the hell they deserve." Leo stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. The silence stretched until it felt like the air itself would snap. Then, slowly, a cold, terrifying smile spread across Leo Voss's lips.
It was the
Smile of a predator that had just been handed the keys to the slaughterhouse. "Read," Leo murmured, not breaking eye contact with me. "Yes, Mr. Voss? Get a doctor in here to examine Luna's injuries. Get her a room upstairs, a proper meal, and a fresh change of clothes." Leo handed my phone back to me, his fingers brushing mine. His touch was ice cold.
she's not part of that bloodline anymore.
"As of tonight, she's my guest." He turned back toward the dark window, looking out over the city. "And read, sir. Send the formal invitation to the family tomorrow morning," Leo whispered, his voice smooth as silk and sharp as a razor. "Tell Miss Thea and her parents that I am overwhelmed by their daughter's heroism. Tell them I wish to host an intimate, private dinner at my estate to express my deepest gratitude and to discuss her future with Voss Corporation." "Understood, sir." Reed bowed slightly. I looked at Leo's reflection in the glass. "You're going to let them think they won?" "No, Luna." Leo met my eyes in the reflection, his gaze dark and absolute.
I'm
"Going to give them everything they ever dreamed of. And right when they think they're standing on top of the world, I'm going to rip the floor out from under them." For the next 48 hours, the trap was set with mathematical precision. I stayed in a guest suite on the top floor of the Voss estate. It was luxury, beyond anything I had ever known, but I didn't care about the plush feather beds or the marble bath. I spent my time watching the drama unfold through the family group chat and the news. The bait was swallowed, hook, line, and sinker. The moment Reed delivered the physical, wax-sealed invitation to my parents' rundown townhouse, my family completely lost their minds. Thea posted a photo of the invitation on every social media platform she owned. The caption read, "When heartaches turn into new beginnings. Thank you, Leo, for recognizing who stood by you in the darkest hours. Hashtag Voss Estate, hashtag new chapter, hashtag blessed." In the group chat, my mother was practically hyperventilating with greed. "Mom, he invited us to the private estate. Not a restaurant, the estate. He wants to introduce Thea to the inner circle. Dad, I checked the real estate listings. That property is worth $40 million. Thea, you make sure you play your cards right tonight. Get him to sign over a retainer or an executive position before the night is over. Thea, don't worry, Dad. I bought a designer white gown. Today, looks just like the one Serafina wore at the gala last year. When Leo sees me in it, he'll think his wife was resurrected. By midnight, I'll be wearing her diamond ring. Mom, has anyone heard from that traitor Luna? Dad, who cares? She's probably rotting in some motel. Once we move into the estate, we'll hire private investigators to track her down and make sure she never speaks a word. Forget her." I sat on the edge of the velvet armchair in my room, looking at the screen. A chilling sense of relief washing over me. In my past life, their words would have broken my heart. I would have wept, wondering why my own mother and father hated me so much, why they preferred a murderous sociopath over the daughter who
Just wanted them to be safe. Now,
I felt nothing.
no anger, no sadness.
Just a cold, sharp anticipation. A knock sounded at my door. Reed stepped in, carrying a garment bag. "Miss Luna," he said respectfully. "Mr. Voss requested that you wear this tonight. The guests will be arriving in 30 minutes. I unzipped the bag. Inside was a sleek, midnight black silk dress, simple, elegant, and entirely unpretentious. Beside it was a small velvet box containing a pair of diamond stud earrings. "Where will I be sitting?" I asked. Reed offered a thin, dark smile. "Mr. Voss has built a private observation parlor right off the main dining room, behind a two-way mirror. You will hear every word, see every reaction, without them ever knowing you are there." "And when does the show start?" "Whenever you are ready, Miss Luna." At 7 p.m., a black stretch limousine hired by Leo pulled up to the grand front entrance of the Voss estate. From behind the dark two-way mirror in the elevated observation room, I watched them step out. It was sickeningly grotesque. My father was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting rented tuxedo, puffing out his chest, like he already owned the place, glaring arrogantly at the uniformed security guards who opened the doors. My mother wore an over-the-top gold sequin dress, her neck plastered with fake pearls, her eyes darting greedily around the marble foyer, taking mental inventory of the artwork and bronze statues. And then there was Thea. She stepped out of the car with calculated elegance. She had dyed her hair to match Serafina's exact shade of chestnut brown. She wore a striking, floor-length white silk gown, nearly identical to the signature style Serafina was famous for. She had mimicked Serafina's posture, her gentle tilt of the head, even the dramatic, melancholy sigh she gave as she looked around the grand entry. She wasn't just trying to replace Serafina, she was trying to be her. "Welcome to the Voss residence," Reed said, stepping forward with flawless, cold hospitality. "Mr. Voss is finishing some urgent business in his study. He asks that you make yourselves at home in the grand dining room. Refreshments have been prepared." Of course, of course." My father beamed, slapping Reed heavily on the shoulder. Reed didn't even flinch, though his eyes narrowed slightly at the touch.
Tell
Mr. Voss, not to rush. We family members understand how busy a CEO
can be.
"This way, please," Reed said, guiding them toward the main dining room. The dining room was magnificent. A massive polished mahogany table stretched across the center of the room, set with sterling silver cutlery, crystal wine glasses, and lit by 3 massive crystal chandeliers. At the center of the table sat a single bouquet of white lilies, Serafina's favorite flowers. My family sat down without waiting to be asked. My father immediately poured himself a heavy glass of $4,000, a bottle red wine, swirling it around and taking a massive gulp. "God, taste this." Dad grinned, thrusting the glass toward Mom. "This is what real money tastes like. None of that cheap domestic trash." "Keep your voice down, Arthur," Mom scolded, though she was already snatching a handful of smoked salmon hors d'oeuvres off a silver platter and stuffing them into her mouth. Thea, fix your hair. Make sure you look fragile. Men like Leo love a damsel in distress. Remind him of how you took a beating from the press just to save his wife. Thea smiled, touching her pristine hair. Don't worry, Mom. I've practiced my lines all morning. I'm going to tell him that when I held Serafina in my arms, I felt a spiritual connection to him. I'll tell him that Serafina whispered her final wish into my ear to take care of him. Behind the two-way mirror, I felt a wave of disgust so violent it made my stomach turn. She was insane. Completely, utterly psychotic. Suddenly, the heavy double doors of the dining room swung open. The room went dead silent. Leo Voss stepped inside. He had discarded his casual clothes and was dressed in an immaculate charcoal gray suit. His face was a mask of unreadable, aristocratic calm. He looked regal, terrifyingly powerful, and completely in control. My father hastily put his glass down, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, as he and my mother scrambled to their feet. Thea stood up gracefully, her lower lip trembling slightly, eyes brimming with pre-rehearsed tears. Mr. Voss, Thea breathed, taking a small, hesitant step forward, reaching out a pale hand. Leo, thank you for having us. Being in this house, it feels so bittersweet. Leo stopped at the head of the table. He didn't take her hand. He just stared at her, his eyes cold and dark as coal. Miss Thea, Leo said, his voice smooth, echoing softly in the grand room. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, please sit. They sat down immediately. Leo took his place at the head of the table. Servants stepped out from the side doors, placing covered silver platters in front of each guest. I asked you here tonight for two reasons, Leo began, crossing his hands over the table. First, to acknowledge the extraordinary efforts you made on the street 3 days ago, Miss Thea. The press has hailed you as a hero. Thea lowered her eyes modestly, blushing. I only did what any decent person would do, Leo. I couldn't bear to see such a beautiful, gentle soul suffer. I tried so hard. I gave her CPR, I gave her my own blood, but God took her. Anyway. Yes, Leo said softly. You gave her your blood. My father cleared his throat loudly. Mr. Voss, if I may speak as a father.
Thea
is a tender-hearted girl. She's been inconsolable since the tragic loss.
But our
family believes in looking forward. We know how hard it must be to run a billion-dollar empire while grieving. My family and I are ready to step up and support you in any way possible. In fact, I have a few business proposals for Voss Corp supply chain. Arthur, Mom hissed, swatting his leg under the table, then turning to Leo with a sickeningly sweet smile. What my husband means to say is we want to be family to you, Leo. Thea is young, devoted, and clearly, fate brought her into your life for a reason. Look at her. Doesn't she remind you of someone? Thea looked up, striking a pose that highlighted her side profile directly, mimicking a famous portrait of Serafina that used to hang in the lobby of Voss Corp. Leo looked at her for a long, silent moment. She does, Leo said softly. The resemblance is astonishing. Thea's eyes lit up with wild, triumphant joy. My parents exchanged thrilled glances under the table. They thought they had won. They thought the kingdom was theirs. In fact, Leo continued, leaning back in his chair, the resemblance is so striking that it almost makes me forget the differences. Thea's smile flickered. Differences? Yes, Leo said smoothly. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The side doors opened, but it wasn't the waiters this time. Four burly, sharp-suited men stepped inside, followed by 2 armed police officers in uniform and a man in a white lab coat carrying a heavy leather briefcase. The atmosphere in the room plummeted from warm luxury to absolute ice in a fraction of a second. My father stood up, his face flushing red. What is the meaning of this? Leo.
Who are these people?
Sit down, Arthur, Leo said. His voice was no longer polite. It was the command of an executioner. Dad's knees buckled, and he dropped back into his chair. Leo turned his eyes to the man in the lab coat. Dr. Evans, please read the final forensic report. The doctor unzipped his briefcase, pulled out a thick document, and adjusted his glasses. At 4 p.m. yesterday, a full chemical and toxicological autopsy was completed on the body of Serafina Voss. The findings conclude that the primary Cause of death was acute anaphylaxis caused by severe mango protein exposure. Thea's face went chalk white. She gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned yellow. That's impossible. She died from the car
Crash.
The car crash caused minor blunt force trauma and 2 fractured ribs, Dr. Evans replied coldly, looking over his glasses at her.
Non fatal.
What killed her was the transfusion she received at Methodist Hospital. The blood bag contained lethal levels of concentrated mango antigens. So what? My mother panicked, her voice rising to a shrill screech.
The
hospital made a mistake. They gave her contaminated blood. You should sue the hospital, Leo. What does this have to do with us? The blood bank's records state that the blood came directly from a walk-in donor. Dr. Evans continued smoothly. Donor ID 8841. Miss Thea Vance. That's a lie. Thea shrieked, slamming her hands onto the table, her carefully constructed, elegant persona shattering into millions of frantic pieces.
I
donated blood to save her. I didn't put mangoes in my blood. How could I even do that? That's ridiculous. You're trying to frame me. You didn't put mangoes in the blood bag, Miss Vance, Dr. Evans said calmly. You ingested 3 whole mangoes less than an hour before donating.
For a
normal person, it's just fruit. But for someone with a hypersensitive, dead-stop allergen profile like Mrs. Voss, your blood was a weapon.
No.
Thea screamed, looking frantically at Leo. Leo, listen to me.
I
didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was allergic. It was an accident. I was just trying to be a good Samaritan. An accident?
Leo asked.
His tone was terribly, deadly soft. He reached down, opened his desk drawer beneath the head of the table, and pulled out an object, placing it heavily onto the wood. It was a sleek, silver iPhone in a pink leather case. Serafina's phone. Thea froze as if she had been hit by a bolt of lightning. Her jaw fell open, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. We tracked the GPS signal of my wife's phone the day of the accident, Leo said, his dark eyes locking onto Thea's soul. The signal vanished at the hospital. But an hour ago, my security team performed a silent remote ping. You know where the signal came from, Miss Vance? Leo pointed a long, steady finger at Thea's designer leather handbag sitting on the floor beside her chair. Read, Leo commanded. Reed stepped forward, picked up the handbag, unzipped it, and turned it upside down over the table. Out spilled lipstick, compact powder, keychains, and Serafina's silver iPhone. My mother gasped, dropping her fork. My father stared at the phone, his face turning from red to a sickly, pale green. You took her phone off her bleeding body while she was suffocating, Leo whispered, standing up slowly. His massive frame loomed over the table like a demon rising from hell. You searched her personal notes. You found her medical record file saved in her notes app, the file that listed her severe allergies, her blood type, her emergency contacts. Leo slammed his heavy palm onto the table. The sharp bang echoed like a gunshot, making my mother scream and my father jump out of his skin. You knew, Leo roared, his voice shaking the crystal chandeliers above.
You
read her file. You saw her blood type matched yours. You bought mangoes from the grocery store across from the hospital, ate them in the bathroom, and walked into the blood bank with the sole intention of murdering my wife. I didn't. Thea collapsed into hysterics, sobbing uncontrollably, hair falling into her face, her pristine white dress now wrinkled and messy. Leo, please. I did it for us. I did it because I love you. She didn't deserve you. Look at me. I look just like her. I can be your wife. I can give you everything she gave you. Please, Leo. Shut your mouth. My father suddenly screamed, turning on Thea like a wild dog. He reached across the table and grabbed her by her hair, yanked her head back. You stupid, vile bitch. What did you do? You brought this down on our heads.
Dad, stop.
Thea shrieked, kicking and flailing. You helped me. You told me to do whatever it took to get his money. You said we'd be rich. I never said that. Dad yelled, striking her violently across the face with his open palm, a heavy, brutal smack that sent her crashing out of her chair and onto the floor. You crazy monster. You acted alone. Mr. Voss, listen to me.
My wife.
And I had no idea. She acted alone. We don't support this. We'll help you send her to prison. Arthur, shut up. My mother screamed, lunging at my father, scratching at his face with her long nails. Don't sell out our daughter to save your own skin. You coward. Get off me, you crazy old hack. Dad shoved Mom violently into the table, knocking over glasses of wine and silver platters. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth like a wave of fresh blood. They tore into each other like feral animals in a pit. The father who had beaten me without a second thought, the mother who had starved and cursed me, the sister who had poisoned me in my past life. There they were, rolling on the marble floor, hitting, scratching, screaming, betraying each other in a desperate, pathetic attempt to save themselves. Behind the two-way mirror, I stood completely still. A slow, warm breath left my lips. The dark, suffocating phantom of my past life, the agonizing memory of dying alone in a locked room while poison burned through my veins, finally dissolved into thin air. They were never powerful. They were never invincible. They were just pathetic, greedy, cowardly parasites, devouring themselves the second the sun shone on their dirt. In the dining room, Leo didn't even blink. He stood at the head of the table, watching the violent, shameful circus with absolute disgust. He raised his hand. Officers. The two police officers stepped forward, pulling out heavy steel handcuffs. Behind them, four more armed guards stepped into the room. Arthur Vance, Beatrice Vance, and Thea Vance, the lead officer declared in a booming voice, drawing his taser. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, evidence tampering, grand theft, and physical assault.
On
your knees.
now.
The guards moved in with brutal efficiency. My father was slammed face-first into the spilled wine on the table, his arms twisted behind his back as the steel cuffs clicked shut. He wept and screamed, begging Leo for mercy, claiming he was innocent. My mother was dragged to her knees, screaming curses at the police, her cheap pearl necklace snapping and sending white beads cascading across the floor like
teeth.
And Thea? Thea was pinned to the floor, her face pressed flat against the hard marble, right beside the spilled glass of red wine. Her pristine white gown was soaked in red, filthy and ruined.
Leo.
Leo, she shrieked, her voice cracking into a terrifying, unhinged wail. Look at me. I'm your wife.
I'm Serafina.
You can't do this to me. I love you. Leo. Leo walked over to her slowly. He stopped right beside her head. He didn't look at her with anger. He looked at her with pure, unadulterated revulsion, the way a man looks at a cockroach he is about to crush under his heel. You are not Serafina, Leo said, his voice cold as a winter grave. You're not even human. And by the time my legal team is finished with you, you will spend the rest of your natural life in a maximum security state facility. You will never see the sun, you will never wear silk, and you will never hear my name again. He looked up at the officers. Take them away.
No.
Dad, save me. Thea's screams echoed down the long, cavernous hallways as the police dragged all three of them out of the room, their boots slipping on the spilled red wine and white pearls. The heavy double doors closed. Silence descended upon the dining room once again. 5 minutes later, the door to the hidden observation room clicked open. Leo stepped inside. He looked tired. The terrible, monster-like fury that had filled him for the past 3 days had subsided, replaced by a quiet, heavy grief. But when he looked at me, his eyes were clear. It's over, Leo said softly. It is, I agreed, stepping out from behind the mirror. My legal team has already filed civil suits against your father and mother. Every asset they own, their townhouse, their savings, their future wages, will be seized to pay for damages. They will go to prison as bankrupt felons, Leo explained smoothly, walking over to the window. Your sister is facing consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. My investigators also found evidence of the hit-and-run driver she hired. He was arrested 20 minutes ago and has already confessed that Thea paid him $50,000. I nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. Voss. Leo turned to look at me, measuring me with that sharp, intelligent gaze.
What
will you do now, Luna? I looked down at my hands. They were clean. No blood, no bruises.
Free.
I'm going to start over, I said, a faint smile touching my lips for the first time in 2 lives. I'm going to drop the Vance name. I'm going to finish my degree, get a quiet job, and live a life where no one beats me, no one uses me, and no one orders me around. Leo watched me for a moment, then reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a sleek black leather folder, placing it on the table between us. What's this? I asked. A clean slate, Leo said. Inside is a legal deed to a quiet condominium in downtown Houston under a new identity if you want it. There is also a trust fund account opened in your name, $2 million, and a full ride scholarship to complete your degree at any university of your choice. I stared at the folder, stunned. Mr. Voss, I can't accept this. I didn't give you the evidence for money. I did it to protect myself and to give your wife justice. I know, Leo said softly. If you had done it for money, I wouldn't be offering you a single cent. He walked over to me, stopping 2 steps away. He extended his hand toward me, not as a billionaire titan, not as a former street fighter, but simply as a man who recognized a survivor. Your clean blood bought me 2 final hours with Serafina, Leo said, his voice tight with deep emotion. In those 2 hours before the anaphylaxis took full hold, she woke up. I got to say goodbye. I got to hold her hand. His eyes shimmered with a fleeting glimpse of tears before he blinked them away. You gave me that gift, Luna. This isn't charity. It's a debt of honor. The Voss family always pays its debts. I looked at the folder, then looked back at Leo. Slowly, I reached out and took his hand, shaking it firmly. Thank you, Leo. If you ever need anything, protection, employment, or a favor, you call Reed. Leo added, his voice regaining its firm, undeniable authority. Anyone who tries to hurt you in the future will answer to me. I don't think anyone will dare. I smiled softly. 6 months later, the summer morning was bright and clear in downtown Houston. I sat at a quiet corner table outside a cafe near the university campus, a hot cup of black coffee in front of me and a heavy textbook open on the table. The sun felt warm and gentle on my skin. The bruise on my cheek was long gone, replaced by healthy, radiant skin. I was Luna Claire now, a third-year university student in finance, living in a bright, sunlit apartment overlooking the park. My phone hummed on the table. It was a news notification. I tapped the screen. Headline: Thea Vance sentenced to life without parole in Voss murder case. Parents sentenced to 15 years for conspiracy and abuse. Below the text was a courtroom photo. Thea was wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, her hair shaved short per intake. Protocol, her face hollow, sunken, and devoid of all sanity. She was glaring frantically at the camera, her fingers clawing at the wooden defense table. Beside her, my parents sat in handcuffs, weeping tears of pure despair, utterly broken. I looked at the photo for 3 seconds. Then, without a hint of hesitation, I closed the article, swiped the notification away, and locked my phone. They belonged to the past. A bad dream that had finally ended when the sun came up. I took a slow sip of my warm coffee, smelled the fresh bloom of jasmine flowers from the park across the street, and turned the page of my textbook. My life was finally my own, and it was going to be beautiful,